Page 14, Allegro Moderato. Again, there's nothing new being presented. We're just doing stuff that we've already had, and I assume you've already had form before. At least I hope so, but just briefly, we'll talk about pieces are generally in a particular form, one form or another. It's not just a free-for-all, do whatever. Although sometimes with modern music you think it is. But even that would be a form. You can have sections of in a piece of music. Like you can have chapters in a book, you can have sections in a piece of music. And sometimes they're divided with two bars, a double bar, two thin bars, and sometimes they're not. Sometimes there's a repeat sign covering up the double bars. It just doesn't matter. It's generally one section has one melody and one feel to it, and another section has a different melody or a different feel to it. You can tell it's not quite the same. Those are sections. So we use the letters A, B, C, D to identify the sections, and A is a first, of course, so the first section is A, and the next would be B, and so forth, unless, of course, you had an introduction or an coda, which are sections also. They have names to them, so it's not necessarily section A for an introduction. We would just call it an introduction, or at least I do. Same with the coda, but we'll talk about that more when we get to an introduction and a coda. So you see here on musical form, section A, they've labeled it for you. The first 4 lines is section A, and then the last 2 lines on page 15 is section B. Okay, sections can come in really handy when you get longer pieces like this, because when you go to learn them, you can just focus on one section. You take a big thing and you split it up into little things, and you tackle it by the little things. So here it would be like, okay, I'm going to focus on section A, I'm going to learn it. I'm going to get to where I can play it decent. Not perfect, but decent. And then I'm going to put it aside. And I'm going to do the same thing with section B, and I'm going to focus on section B until I have it. And then once I have it down, then I go back and put the whole thing together. You will not have forgotten section A, it's okay. What you don't do, and what most people do, including me at first, is I would just keep trying to do the whole thing all the way through. That doesn't work very well. It's a very inefficient way to practice, it really is. You end up practicing the first part quite a bit because you always start at the beginning, but you don't always get all the way through. So the last of it generally doesn't get learned all that well. And you can tell when a person has practiced this way when they're performing. They'll start out performing really great, and then as they get further into the piece, they start making mistakes and hesitating and this and that, missing notes, and at the end of the piece, it's clear they don't know it. That's because when they practiced, they always started at the beginning and tried to go through. No. Some people will go the other direction. They'll start at the end. They'll like, I'm going to learn section B first. And once I have that, then I'll learn section A. Doesn't matter. The point is, don't always try and tackle the whole thing in one, on a long piece, the whole thing. On a short piece, you can do that, yeah. Now, let's talk about this Allegro thing and see what we're doing. Allegro Moderato is kind of a weird name, but you'll find in classical music a lot of times they will use the speed of the piece for the name of the piece. So this is Allegro Moderato speed, and they just call it an Allegro Moderato. That's all it means. It has nothing to do with the form or any of that. It's just a handy name they've given it. They could have called it something else, you know, Red Barn Over the Hill or some, I don't know, some crazy name, or it's up to them on what they want to call it, but instead they just give it the speed. Usually these are from a movement, from a multi-movement piece, like a sonata or sonatina where you'd have multiple movements. They don't give the individual movements names. They just call them by the speed they're given. So this would be the Allegro Moderato speed, or the Allegro Moderato movement of whatever the piece is from, if this is from a bigger piece. Different ways of doing it. You'll notice these things as you go through, I'm sure. Anyway, let's talk what's going on. I keep getting sidetracked. I have a set process that I go through when I learn a piece of music. That's what I use in these videos. Sometimes I call it my process. It's not my process. It's just one I use. Nobody owns it. It's just a process. You'll come up with your own. Your teacher has their own. Everybody has their own. You're welcome to make all the changes you want to, but for the videos, I'm going to use the process that I use. And the first thing I do when I'm starting a piece of music is I want to look it over. I want an idea of approximately how long it is. Doesn't have to be exact. I look this over, I see it's 2 pages of music, more or less. I see the repeat signs, so that it's actually going to be longer than that, but as far as music goes, it's 2 pages of music to learn. I check the clef signs because they're not always going to be treble and bass clef. I just have a habit of checking the clef signs. Treble and bass, okay. Then the key signature. I see it's in 1 sharp, so we're in the key of G major here. So I'm going to make sure I do the scale for G major. At least 1 octave up and down. Know the scale. Do the trill exercise. That'll do the most good. And if you've been doing the G major scale and you're comfortable with it, then go ahead and do the 2 octaves, but again, it's the trill exercise that'll do you the most good, and the accents and so forth. And then 4/4 time signature. I look it over, I see half notes, quarter notes, eighth notes. I think we can handle all that okay. Both hands are playing, so I'm going to take this 1 hand at a time to make sure I understand what each hand is doing. The right hand starts with 3rd finger here. And until you move, you don't need another finger number. Now, teachers disagree on this. Do it however your teacher tells you to. But for me, I do not encourage reading finger numbers because your hands move around and your fingers are in different keys. So you just need to remember which key your fingers are on. So if I put 3rd finger on this B, I need to just keep in mind that these other fingers are on these other keys. And I need to remember that. Now when I go to move, it's handy to have a finger number in there to tell me where to move. But it's like in the 2nd measure with all those 8th notes, that's just a G major scale going up. I don't really need those finger numbers either. I'm just going to play the scale. Doesn't hurt having them there, it's just that. But in the 3rd measure, I don't need that 4. I'm already in this position. And then we do the scale coming down almost. And in the B section of measure 9, I don't need a 4th finger there because I'm already there. I don't need a finger to tell me that. So I don't like all these other finger numbers. In the B section, I'm not moving around in the right hand. I don't need any other finger number at all, actually, in that section. I should know which key each finger is on. If I have to look down sometimes to remind myself, fine, because over time I'll get better at it. But yeah. At the beginning, we have 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and then it's just this scale coming up. 1 and 2 and 3, okay? So that, and I connect everything at first. Okay, so I go through the right hand, okay. Then I do the same with the left. On the left hand, you start with the G chord. 1 chord, and then a 5/7 chord. The idea with these chords is you'll recognize them in the music and you'll think of them as 1 unit, not 3 notes. Because it's easier just to say, oh, it's a G chord. Just play a G chord. Rather than to think, okay, we got a G and a B and a D on here. No, just a G chord. Try and get the notes down at the same time. I don't, but maybe you can. 5/7 chord, a G7, G7. Then let's go over to measure 9. See the numbers at the beginning of the stabs and little boxes? Those are measure numbers. So measure 9, section B. We're here. 1, 4, and. Get the idea? Okay. So once I have an idea what each hand is doing, then I go back and try and put the hands together. And I usually hesitate a lot. That's fine. I just want to know how the hands are working, the fingers are working together. So at the beginning we're here, and then here, and then here. And right when I play the B in the 2nd measure, the left hand comes up. And then here. And the left hand has a whole note here, so that's fine. And then 1, and then these together, and these are together. And then here. Okay? And then in section B, measure 9, we're here, here, and then A's, and here, and then here, and then here. And in that bottom line, the next to the last measure, the first ending, left hand, that is a 5/7 and a 1 chord. We're just not using all the notes. We don't have to. So here we're just using 2 notes in it. Still a 5/7 and a 1 chord. We're just not using them all. Now once I have the hands together, then I go back over, and this is what takes the time, and I slowly work out the hesitations. This is where, if you, again, you have to, you split it up into sections and you get rid of any hesitations in each section. Whatever it takes, get rid of it in a steady beat. Speed is not important right now, but no hesitations. And once I can do that, then I think about the articulation. See, I just kind of do this one thing at a time. I'm building this thing up because I can't think about everything all at once. So I got the notes and the rhythms, okay, and now I'm thinking about the articulation. These, you can't connect these, they're chords. So you pretend you can connect them, get them as close as you can. In the right hand, you have slurs and staccatos, and you're going to connect but then on measure 4, we have staccatos. Flexing at the wrist, bump, bump, bump. Measure 9, we're going to connect the left hand, but staccato. So now I'm connecting one hand and I'm staccatoing the other. And this is a struggle for some people. They can't do this. Well, slow it way down. Just take the first note and play it. Play that short and hold that down. Okay, again. Just do that slowly until you get the idea of doing this. And this is one of the things you can practice when you're doing the scale. Since you're doing the scale anyway, practice this short and connecting stuff with the scale. I could go in the scale, instead of that, I could go. To get that feel, and then switch it and let the other hand. You're doing scale anyway, you just well practice this. This way when you get in music, you already know what it feels like, you can do it. So once I have the articulation in, then I'll think about the dynamics. MP at the beginning is mezzo piano, and it applies to the melody, wherever it is. So we have to figure out where the melody is. In this case, it's in the right hand. So that moderately soft, sort of soft. When you have an arrow, you're going to go up to about a moderately loud and then come back down. And then come back. All the way down to soft. There. In the left hand, keep it in the background and out of the way. So we want to hear the melody. Don't play them the same. Because then this drowns out that. And this is sort of soft. So, on measure 9, you have an MF-P. They have the words on repeat. You don't need the words there. Normally, you don't get the words. When you see 2 dynamics, you simply do the first dynamic the first time you play it, and the second dynamic second. So we start out moderately loud in the right hand, whatever you think sort of loud is. This left hand needs to be soft. And then when you repeat it, now you're going to do soft, very soft in the left hand. Again, dynamics is something you can practice when you're doing the scales. Try playing one hand loud and the other hand soft. At the same time, so you're heavy, light. And then switch it, let the other hand be heavy. Light. So you get this feeling of playing a little lopsided here. It's important. If you can get it with the scales, and the beauty of doing it with scales is that you're going to run across this in music. If you can do it with a scale, then you'll be able to do it in the music. Plus, by doing this other stuff with the scales, you're actually practicing the scales a little more. And that comes in handy. So it's a win-win situation. So practice the dynamics with the scales too. How soft can you play a scale? without using the soft pedal, of course. We want to develop the control in the finger. Very light. How soft? Both hands. How soft can you play it? So it just barely sounds. Very light. Something to work toward, as well as playing it very loud too. And you're playing very loud, make sure you're letting the wrist collapse a little bit. Don't stiffen up and earl. We don't earl on piano. It's just a lot of weight and let the wrist collapse. And once I have the dynamics in, I'll think about the speed. This is Allegro Moderato. It's kind of a hybrid. Allegro is quick or fast. Some people say it's happy. To me, it just means fast. Moderato's in the middle, or moderate. So this is sort of a moderately fast piece. But it needs to be accurate. So find the hardest part in it. Is it the scale? Or wherever. I don't know where the hardest part would be for you. Don't go faster than that. It's got to be accurate first. So it'll be a different speed for each. But they give you a range there. But again, you got to take it at your speed. If you can't play it as fast as the slowest one, close enough, you always come back through this again and play it later on, and you'll find you'll be able to play it better and faster then too. Remember how the repeat signs work? The repeat sign at the end of measure 8, that sends you back to the beginning. They have a reverse repeat sign at the beginning. I disagree with that. I think that frankly shouldn't be there. You can cross that reverse repeat sign out. The repeat sign means go back to the last reverse repeat sign, and if there isn't one, go to the beginning. There is no reason, as far as I'm concerned, to have a reverse repeat sign at the beginning of a piece. You're going to go there anyway. So when you get to the end of measure 8 the first time, you're just going to go back and to the beginning and play the whole thing again to that point. Now in section B, we do need the reverse repeat sign on measure 9, because when we get to the repeat sign in the last line, we'll go back to there. Okay, we don't want to go back to the beginning again. We're going to go back to there. You see the first and second endings at the bottom. So the first time you play section B, you're going to do the first ending. Repeat it, and the second time you're going to skip the first ending. You've already done it once, that's it. So you go from measure 11 over to measure 13 and finish it. Basically how it works. Now a couple of little things. Again, keep in mind that the music doesn't tell you everything. All of this stuff, the articulation, dynamics, tempo, all that stuff, that is part of interpreting the music. Turning this sound into emotion. They're guiding you. They're giving you some ideas on how to interpret the music. They don't tell you everything. Now, a lot of teachers don't teach interpretation, but I try to teach at least some. And the first thing I do, other than what the music is written, is I add the natural accents. And you feel these. That's why they're called natural accents. An accent is when you play it a little louder. Well, a natural accent is when it's just a little bit of stress on it. And in 4/4 time, you have one on the first beat and one on the third beat. The first beat of a measure is always the strongest natural accent in any time signature. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3. You feel these. And put it in, exaggerate them if you have to. 2. But eventually you just want to feel it as you play it. Ba, ba. Feel it. 1, 2, 3, 4. And the dynamics. You want to feel the dynamics. Look at measure 12. We are moderately loud here. And then you go back to measure 9. You're soft. I'm not going to go loud, moderately loud, and then suddenly soft. No. Those eighth notes lead into that C when I repeat. So I'm actually going to be soft on the eighth notes. There. Rather than there. See, they don't always put the dynamics and the hairpins and all this stuff exactly where it goes. You have to look at the music and what makes sense musically. So, in my opinion, in measure 12, those eighth notes should have a P under them. It should be soft there. So they're soft right there. There's an RIT in the last measure telling you to slow down. They never tell you how much to slow down, usually, mostly, almost always never. Feel it. What is 1, 2, 3, 4? 1, 2, 3, 4. You don't slow down to a stop. You just slow down a little bit. If I play it with a metronome, I can't slow down because the metronome won't slow down. At the bottom of page 15, they talk a little bit about transposition. Transposition is where you move something from one place to another. You transpose it, move it. Here they're saying you play this in key of C major. Remember, C major is no sharps or flats? Basically, what you're doing is you're playing the same fingers that they're doing. So instead of here, we're here. To here. Play the whole thing in C major. Yeah, you can play around with that if you'd like to. Now, you go ahead and learn it and get it to at least where you can play it with no hesitations. And then let's play it together very slowly and check that you have the correct notes and the correct rhythms. You see, if you have a teacher and you play a wrong note, they usually tell you, at least I hope they do, or the rhythm is wrong. If you're by yourself, how do you know? So that's what I have a play with me section in most of the videos, and let's just play it together slowly. Now, if we start getting into more advanced music, I'm assuming by then you'll know if you're playing wrong notes or not, and I don't do play with me sections in the more advanced music, but I will at least for a while in this book. Let's see, in this one, I'll give us 4 counts. I'm not going to do louds and softs, we're not performing it, but we will do the repeats. 1, 2, ready, go. 1 and 2 and. Repeat, and 2 and. And 2 and. Rest. Repeat. Second ending. 3, 4, off. There is a duet for this at the bottom of the page. I'd like to play that. I need you to go up the keyboard, go up an octave. It'll sound better. So just pretend that middle C on the keyboard instead of here is up here. And instead of here, play it up here. Play it all up here. I'll give us 4 counts. We're going to speed this up a little bit. I'm going to go back here. 1 and 2 and. So make sure you can play it that fast or this won't work. No hesitations. We'll do all the repeats and everything. 1, 2, ready, go.